Say a few things about the criminology that comes out of here and what makes it different. There's a number of different places to study criminology here and to do criminological research. We're not the only one at the Institute. Our sociology program, which is represented here, our social policy and social work schools also do some very good work in criminology. The University of Ulster, who is probably represented here as well and certainly on the schedule, also does some outstanding research. But overall, we're very small. We're a population of 1.5 million here, so likewise, although we bat well above our weight internationally, we're a small community of criminologists. It would be premature to talk about an Irish school of criminology in the way we talked about the Chicago school and so forth. We're young, we're new as a discipline, and we're small. But I do think there are discernible things that make us special. Some of you went to the Irish Criminology Conference here the last few days, and you probably picked these things up. But things that make the work here different than the work anywhere else. And I have a scattered sort of bullet dot list, but I didn't put it on a slide. The most important thing, I think, that makes the work here different and makes life here different is the open recognition, the fact that we're a transitional society coming out of conflict, colors everything in our work, and it raised an important parallel that exists throughout the world, but is made manifest here and very blatant. The connection between conflict and criminology, the connection between security and so-called wars on terrorism in general, and the way we deal with so-called safety and crime and justice. Phil already talked about the criminalization of the conflict here. So during the war, the criminal justice system was at the front line. So we had courts. They weren't courts that were recognizable in most parts of the world as being courts, but there were courts used. The police were used, prisons were used, the exact same prisons that we're dealing with ordinary crime, so-called, non-political crime, so-called, were the same prisons that were used to deal, and the people who were fighting in the war were made to wear prison uniforms, or efforts were made to put them in ordinary prison uniforms, because as Phil and Margaret Thatcher say, a crime is a crime is a crime. And this notion, you'll never forgive me for that one. I think that's there. This use of the one service, the one criminal justice service, both to fight a war and to punish ordinary criminals, really calls into it makes clear the role of the state in criminal justice. And there are, of course, many criminologists today, many of them from America, but throughout the world, who've argued that there's parallels to be found between terrorism and ordinary crime. And they're scattering, running around trying to get research dollars to say, oh, we can use our criminological methods and our criminological theories to account for this fascination the world has with terrorism at the moment. That's not the kind of link that I'm talking about. The Irish perspective, it seems to me, is a very different one, and for historical reasons of the whose side are we on variety. The Irish perspective, I would argue, automatically sees a continuity not between terrorism and crime, which people here have fought to prevent that kind of parallels and linkages, but rather between state responses to security issues and state responses to crime. And that is the link between justice and security. If anything, the call is usually to better understand criminal justice reactions through a lens of transitional justice approach, through a human rights approach, through a political and cultural analysis, to say what we've learned from understanding the conflict in Northern Ireland, hey, we can take that and apply it to criminology. There's also conflicts going on with so-called ordinary crime, so-called non-political crime, that we can learn from the movements here. And so the kind of political organizations of ex-prisoners that you're going to meet with Kushta as being the best example of. These are role models, I think, for understanding the kinds of ex-prisoner organizations that Bill was talking about, in the sense, and he's certainly right, that there has been that division, well, one are political and one are not political, but I think living here and working here, the politics invades everything we do, and sometimes folks across the water will say, well, yes, but you folks at Queens, once you get there, everybody just studies the conflict. Nobody does normal criminology anymore, so-called, and there is that great temptation. You know, if you're coming here from Chicago or Liverpool, the first thing you think of to study is, well, the most obvious and interesting thing going on is this sort of post-conflict, the dealing with the past, the dealing with the future of conflict here. But we do lots of research on sexual offending, lots of research on drugs in society, lots of research on ordinary so-called property crimes and violence and the like. The difference is that research is colored in a very specific lens, a Northern Irish lens, I would say. It's a lens that recognizes the political nature of all of these, the political nature of prison in general, and the choice of using the criminal justice system in that way. It's a lens that understands automatically that we live in a divided society. So the kind of the conflict theory that comes out of criminology, the very rightfully the critique of the kind of Durkheimian notions, it is an automatic here. Nobody here would talk of what does the community want, as if the community were a singular voice, because we've known for a good long time that the community is very strongly divided on fundamental constitutional issues and so forth. So no one here talks as if there is just that one community, and that then impacts the way we think about how we deal with sex crimes or how we deal with hate crimes and the like, very much so. And how am I doing on time? 5 minutes. I think I can do that. And the other lens here that's so blatant and clear is the legacy of colonialism in all of Ireland. And this is impossible to miss. It's just as one can't work in the United States and miss the connections and the parallels between slavery and the prison system, with the stark racial disparity of prisoners and the terrible return of chain gangs, as a stark reminder, in case anybody missed it, of the parallels between the use of imprisonment and the use of slavery. One can't do criminology in Ireland without noticing that the prisons we study today are the direct descendants, and in some cases the exact same buildings, of the prisons built and operated by the British to contain Irish revolutionaries, as well as others that were unpopular by the colonial powers at the time. A book that I'm always recommending that's very useful on this is by Ian O'Donnell and others, called Crime, Punishment, and the Search for Order in Ireland. And the book goes through this history of colonial and post-colonialism in Ireland. They talk about that essentially the Irish prison service and the police were used as something of a social laboratory for the British, where the government was able to experiment in Ireland on lines that they were not prepared to contemplate or tolerate at home. So many of the more punitive the criminal justice innovations, if that word can be used, actually were tested first here in Ireland before being brought back home to England and Wales and so forth.